Hey guys, welcome to Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. If you haven't been here before, I'm Sarah. I'm married to Mark and we have 10 kids all together. We have 8 here at home and we are a busy family, and I haven't been on. I was on a couple days ago to kind of tell you what was going on, and so now is another chatty video because we have just had a really busy weekend. So we got to spend some time with my mom on Saturday. I think I made my last video on Friday, maybe it was Saturday morning. We got to spend time with my mom on Saturday. My mom is gone for a week again. So if you know, if you've been around, my mom is here almost every day because she works at the local hospital and she lives here on our property. So when she comes home, she a lot of times comes up for dinner. But a couple weeks ago, she was gone for a week to visit with friends. And now she's gone because she is staying at a friend's house to help her recover from surgery. So we got to spend Saturday a bunch of time with my mom. And then she's now gone for the week. What else has happened here? If you watched the last video, I was very tired when I made that last video. Josiah had not been sleeping well and the baby is teething. So between those, sleep had not been happening. The last couple nights have been a lot better and that's been helpful for everybody. If you follow along, Josiah's seizures have been, we haven't had many seizures recently. And the ones we've had have been very small. So that's been really good. If you haven't been here, our 12-year-old has epilepsy. We go through stages where he'll have a bunch and then we'll go through sometimes weeks with no seizures. So that's been good. Sunday, we went to church and had breakfast with our church family, which was really fun. The kids always enjoy having everyone else's sweets and treats, but it's also a nice time to be able to fellowship with people. So I had a chance to talk to one of the elders' wives just about Samuel and his driving that's coming up. She just wanted to give me some words of encouragement. She's had a couple kids go through it, and the other kids got to just visit with their friends, which a lot of their friends are the older people at church. We had a really good message for Palm Sunday about the triumphal entry, and we came home that afternoon and took a rest time because people were tired. We watched a God's Not Dead movie that we had borrowed from the library and just took the day to rest. It was great. Yesterday was Monday. We did stuff. Oh, I wanted to say this was part of what I was going to turn the camera on for, and then I totally forgot. We had a huge blessing last week that I forgot to mention on a video. It had just been a really hard day. So if you've been around, we've just had some medical stuff come up. Mark has been having just some not more trouble. It's just been a hard couple days because of the lack of sleep. So it's just been rough around here. It doesn't mean it's bad. Hard doesn't equal bad, but it's just been hard. And we know God is in all of it. We know God has a plan for all of this. But the other day we got home and we had gotten a letter in the mail from somebody. I don't know who. I just know that they are a fellow Christian and they sent us a gift. And thank you very much for that anonymous gift. It was very sweet of you to send that. And yeah, it just really brightened our day after the hard time we had been having. Also, I wanted to say that my mom is a true blessing. I know sometimes people think that I forget what a true blessing she is. We spend so much time with her. But before she went away this weekend, she asked, could she come up and make cookies? And so she made cookies for all the kids. And the kids love them, and it's her thing to love on them. So that was super sweet. And then someone at church had a party and had leftover cupcakes and thought of our family. So I know those are all kind of like, well, some of those are like food related. But we eat a lot of food in this house and it was just sweet for those people to think of us. So thank you. Also, another just weird update. We have been doing kombucha, which we have really been enjoying. The kids have really been enjoying it. I'm glad to have another healthy way to get kombucha is like a fermented tea and it's full of probiotics. So that's been really nice to get that. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I was afraid it was going to be very complicated. I'm trying out some new recipes with sourdough and I hope to show some of those in the near future. But we did make French bread, which was half white and our French bread recipe you've seen on here before. but it was half white and half fresh milled grain. And it has come out super yummy. So that's been exciting. And our family the other day tried steel cut oats for the first time. And I was nervous to try steel cut oats because of the cooking time. And in the morning, if you're a large family, you know mornings can be super busy. But I found a recipe, and you mix 2 cups of steel cut oats with 4 cups of water and 4 cups of milk. And you bring it to a boil for 2 minutes. And then you put it in the fridge. Oh, and you do like a half a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, a half a teaspoon of salt. And after the 2 minutes, you let it cool and you put it in the fridge overnight. And when you wake up in the morning, it's all done. All the soaking has cooked it. So I chose to just store it in the fridge in the pan that we had cooked it in. And then in the morning, I just warmed it up on the stovetop, and we added some raspberries and maple syrup. So what I did was I added 1/3 of a cup for that whole container. I added 1/3 of a cup of maple syrup and raspberry pieces. And then when we put it in bowls, I just did a small drizzle of maple syrup on top. And it was so yummy. I had never tried steel cut oats before. So I'm excited to do those again. We'll do them again, not for tomorrow because we have to run out early. I'll make muffins, but I'm going to do those again soon. And the steel cut oats and the raspberries were from Azure Standard, and that has been really great. So the steel cut oats, people say, I haven't tried it, but they say it's easy to make at the start of the week and then warm up in the morning, just in the microwave, an individual serving, or you could eat it cold. My family does not prefer cold, like the overnight oats and stuff. They don't prefer those, so we just warmed it up. What else has been going on? Okay, so I told you about Sunday. Monday, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday we went to the doctor's office because we had just a well child check, and I just thought this was funny. I don't want to, I'm not saying anything bad about my pediatrician. I really like our pediatrician, but through a couple, like I had to make a phone call to a doctor's office, reading the stuff on the walls. I'm not going to say exactly how this all came up, but 2 things still in Maine. They ask about COVID. They ask, have you been exposed to somebody with the coronavirus? They're still asking that in Maine, which seems very unusual because when we were in, like my daughter, Virginia, has now lived in Tennessee for a few years. We had visited Tennessee multiple times, and coronavirus, like after about a year, they stopped asking questions about it and stuff. And here in Maine, they're still asking questions about it. So it's interesting how we are this United States and things are so different. And then the other thing is, there was talk at the doctor's office about measles and how measles is so deadly and contagious. And I think that we really have to go back to the idea that if you're sick, stay home. Don't pass it on to everybody. I am not specifically worried about measles for my family. Like, yes, I try to keep my family healthy, but I think we would go a long way if people who are sick would actually stay home and let your immune system work to fight that illness. So many times now people just take medicine so that they feel better and their fever's gone so they can go on about their day, and they don't let their body rest and recover the way that your body is supposed to. God made us in such a way that our bodies can recover from a lot of illnesses. I'm not saying that your body will recover from every illness. We know that there's death and this is a broken world, but I think that we would do a lot better, even if it's just a common cold, if you take time to give your body the rest it needs. Like we homeschool. If we have a sick child, I don't push the lessons that day for them. I give them a day to rest. Maybe they're sitting around reading a book. Maybe we're watching a documentary, but I'm going to give them time to rest and not be like, you need to sit there and do your 50 math problems. But because we live in a society where we are so focused on showing that we are worthy because we are productive, we tend to just push through illness, and it's not the best thing for our bodies. So I just found that in that conversation, it just reminded me we need to make sure that if we are sick, we stay home. So like when we're sick as a family, we stay home as a family. Even if it's just a couple people have started out sick, well, the rest of us are probably about to get sick. And if some of us have already started to recover and there's still sick people at home, those people who are just recovering probably need the rest too, because your body doesn't immediately get back to normal. It needs that rest. So anyway, there's my little soapbox for the day. So I'll get off that soapbox. Anyway, yesterday we did the well child visit. It's a bummer how the healthcare system works. And I know this happens in other countries and stuff too. But it is frustrating to go to a doctor's office and wait a really long time for the doctor. And I'm not saying that it's the doctor's fault, because I know other people are scheduling for him. And I also know that the hospital says, hey, doctor, you need to see 4 patients an hour. And if you have a patient who's more complicated, I want my doctor to be able to be there with me if I'm the complicated patient. It's just something's broken in the healthcare system where they take so long to get to appointments. And again, I'm not poking, it's not specifically one doctor or one nurse or one scheduler. It's just the system. But it is frustrating to be sitting in the doctor's office with a baby who does not want to be there waiting for the doctors to come in. But Elisha had his appointment yesterday and he is perfect. He's growing great. And we are 11 months old. So people had asked me about our babies and when they start food. Elisha has started little bites of things. So like a little bit of broth on a spoon, a little bit of egg yolk, just that kind of thing. Not actually like a meal, just a couple bites at a meal of different things we're eating. And he's enjoys it, but he's not like, I gave him a couple bites of egg yolk the other day and then he was done. He's not like dying to have that. He still mostly nurses. He still co-sleeps at night and he's still up multiple times a night, which is still like physiological. I can't speak today. It is normal for babies to still be up at night, because even if they're not up just to get nutrition, which breast milk goes through them really quick. And so since he's only eating breast milk, that's fine. But also they're up for comfort and they're up because they got cold and they need to be covered up. And it is totally normal for a baby to wake up. I'm not saying that no babies ever sleep through the night before that, but babies want the reassurance that mom is nearby and that mom is going to come to them when they need help. So yeah, it's perfectly normal. I was talking to somebody who has a younger one about this, and it is perfectly normal that your baby is still up and it's okay. Also, you're not spoiling your baby. Your baby will eventually learn to sleep on their own. Out of all the kids that we have, so we've raised 10, all of them except the baby has their own bed that they normally sleep in. Yes, I have this bed here for if we have a sick child. This is the bed in my, like there's a twin bed in our bedroom. If we have a child who's sick, or if Josiah is having a really seizure-y night, he might sleep in here, but all of them have their own beds and that's where they prefer to sleep. So it definitely, and there was nothing in me forcing them into a room. They just eventually are like, oh, I want to go to the be with the big kids. And they do that. So today is Tuesday. We got up this morning and we did our breakfast, which Naomi had made blueberry muffins. I have great kids. I don't know if I said that. I have great kids. Yesterday, Naomi asked me if she could make blueberry muffins to make this morning easier. And Samuel asked me, hey, can I make supper? Because I really want to. And so I didn't have to make supper last night or breakfast this morning. And then for lunch today, we had pizza, and Naomi helped me with that by making the pizza dough while I was doing school with people. And then she helped check the pizzas while I was nursing a baby. So it's great having older kids. It takes a lot of work in the beginning. I know some people who are like, oh, you don't understand how hard it is when you just have littles. And I do. At one point, my kids were all little and it's a lot of hands-on work. But when you're teaching them how to do things in the later half, it's a lot easier because they can do things and they can help. And with a big family, I don't force them to take over like parenting stuff, but like everybody needs to know how to do laundry. Everybody needs to know how to make beds. Not that we make beds every morning, but everyone needs to know how to do those things. And so it's okay to have the kids have chores. So we got up, we did that. We did Bible. Our family is reading through Acts right now. We just finished Proverbs as a family and now we're doing Acts. And it's been interesting to read Acts. Just what did the early church look like? And is that what we're longing for? Are we longing to be around people who want to talk about Christ? We've been able to have some people over to our house recently Because you can go to church with people, but just the Sunday morning doesn't give you enough time to actually talk to people and get into their lives and figure out how, like, what they need and to bear each other's burdens and all of that stuff. You really need to be involved in a church where you can be close to people. So we've been able to have people over, and it's been really fun to be able to talk to them and get encouragement from them, get advice from them on different subjects. I got advice on a couple different things from some people we got together with last week, and just to really, I don't know, be a part of the family of God. So we're reading Acts, figuring out what that means. And then I did some school with younger people, and then we had pizza for lunch. When we have pizza, like a lot of times we'll do like pizza and a movie, and it's like a nighttime thing, but it's just been really busy recently because of Samuel's driving. So we instead did pizza for lunch, and we watched a show called Most Dangerous Ways to School. I think it's a free documentary. And there's like 30 of them that you can find on YouTube. And we've watched 2 now. We watched one about the coldest place on earth, which I think is in Russia somewhere. And then we watched one today about Peru and having to travel. The first one, they had to travel in like really, really freezing temperatures where you could die if you're exposed too long. And then today, the one we watched, they had to travel across this really long lake for hours to get to school. And it just made me think a couple different things. One, what do we expect for kids to be learning in school? And is it important enough for them to be risking their lives to get there? Because in both of these cases, had a child, like if they had hurt their leg on the frozen tundra, they could have froze to death. And in this one, if they had fallen off their boat, no one would have known they were in the lake because they were going through these vast places where there just weren't people. So one, is what they're being taught worth it? These are like little kids. This isn't like university students. And if they would look at what we're teaching in America, in our schools that we're filling our time with, would they say, yes, that's worth it for our kids to go? And just how our mindset has changed since we brought our children home, homeschooling, what we really focus on for school. And yes, I do all the things that my state says. We teach science, we teach history, we teach all of those things, English, math, the stuff. In Maine, we have a list of subjects we have to teach, and my kids get all those covered. But really focusing on teaching them about God and why he's worthy of our worship. I do not make any of my children become a Christian. That is all God's working. But I teach them the things that are important to our family. And some of those things that are important to our family are knowing what God's word says. And, we do that through reading scripture and singing songs and all of that. But also just being a productive member of society. So even if they can't do, finish high school with doing Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry and trigonometry, I'm not saying not to do math. I'm not saying that. But if my kid hasn't finished trigonometry at the end of high school, but they are a decent human being who can work within the society and can do something beneficial for themselves and others, then I've done my task. Because we need people who are garbage men. Like we actually know somebody who is a garbage man, and he's worked his way up the line, and he is very, very good at what he does. I do not know what subjects he excelled in school. He might be the most grammatically correct, literate English major ever. I don't know. Maybe he did trig and calculus and all of those. I don't know. But we still need someone to pick up the trash. We have people who are, English majors who might be working to keep your water clean that's coming into your house. We have people who are engineers who are helping to build roads and bridges and all of that. I know one of those too. But having the kid be able to focus on the things that they are interested in and doing something that is productive for themselves and others is where I'm at. Not, you must finish these predetermined math classes or English classes, or you must read this classic book when you have no interest in that, but you'd rather be reading this book. but it's teaching you about being a missionary and you're going out into the world to tell people about God. I don't know. I think that we put too much focus on this list of what we think our kids should learn, and we forget there's a lot more to learning than this list that has been predetermined by the school system. I want my kids to be able to hold a conversation with an adult. I want my kids to know basic logic so that they actually can have a coherent debate with somebody. Not that I want them debating all the time, but that they can actually like form cohesive sentences and make an argument. I want them to know geography and about the world that God created around us and the people groups and how we're all so different, but yet we're also alike, and that we all have that sin nature, but we also all know that there's a creator and that we want to, that we actually are responsible to him. And then we try to, like some people try to suppress that in unrighteousness, but we're all a sinner and God is the only one who's keeping us from sinning as badly as we could. I want them to know science and how the world works around us and why God has these different things. And then when we see a miracle and we're like, we don't understand that. Well, God's the one who made all of nature and he does these things. I want them to know about people in history and how they stood up for their faith or how they stood up for their countrymen. But I also want them to know about things in history and why we don't want to go back to having someone like Hitler in power, or we don't want to go back and have, the Romans in charge, like they were in the days of Jesus, and how we want to abolish slavery like they did during with the Civil War and all the things that came up to that. And I don't care that they can memorize the dates of the Civil War. I care that they know, why did the Civil War happen, and what was the North thinking, and what was the South thinking, and how did that all blend together, because there were people on both sides that had good arguments for why they thought something should happen, but they were also saying that these African Americans were not actually people and we didn't have to actually protect them. And then we go into abortion and people say that that's not really a human and we don't have to protect them, but we do. It's the same idea as slavery. And so I want them to know about history for that. I want them to know about history and how the world was created and how God did that, and how God was so amazing that he gave us things that we can be interested in, like flowers and sunrises and food that tastes good. God didn't have to do any of that, but he chose to do that. God decided to make birds look all different ways and colors. He could have just made seagulls and that be it. God's just amazing. And so I want my kids to know about all of those things in light of God creating all of it. And the dangerous positions we put our children in so that we can fit into the box of what's normal in society. And while I was watching that show, Dangerous Ways to School, I was also just thinking about the danger we put our children through for school in this country too, because we'll put our children on a bus with a person we don't know. There are predators everywhere, I'm sorry to say. There are people who want to harm children, and some of them are in the school system. There's abusive teachers, there's abusive students, there's material that I don't want my kids learning outside of my understanding, like me seeing it, because I can't correct what they've been taught in school because I don't know exactly what they've been taught. When I'm reading a book with them, I just did a book review. When I'm reading a book with them and there's something in the book that I don't agree with, I can tell them, from a Christian worldview, here's what the Bible says. And I can't do that with each one of my students when they go off and someone teaches them anything. It's just hard. I want my kids to know about the world around them. I love learning with them. I love being able to experience life with them. And I don't want to give up all those hours that I have with them for a teacher to have them, but especially because of the dangers that go with it, where the schools are teaching an anti-God worldview on everything. And some of these kids in school, we just had some debates with people about abortion. Some of these kids in school don't even know they have a worldview. Like, they don't know that they're seeing the world through a certain lens. We tell our kids, because we believe the Bible, we're going to tell you that God created the world. And yes, I truly believe that's true. But we're saying we're coming at it with this understanding. And people don't even understand that they have a worldview. They're looking at the world through whatever their worldview lens is. And then in today's society, teaching them like politics and the different things that, whether you agree with Trump or not agree with Trump, there's a lot going on in this world that things are being changed. Executive orders are being made, things are being changed. And to be able to talk to our kids about, we agree with this decision that's being made. This holds to a biblical worldview, or this doesn't, or this person doesn't have this power, or whatever. Like just being able to talk all of those things out day in, day out in every conversation we have, just made me see how much we're giving up when we send our kids. But anyway, I got to get going because Samuel has driving time today for the first time. So it's very exciting. He is 15 and he has to go drive with his instructor for the next 2 hours. So we will see you guys next time on Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God.